We're live now.
Start over.
No. Do we have to?
Just the approval of whatever we approved.
Okay, let's do the, we've done roll call. Let's do the 3.1 approval of agenda over again.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3.2, the consent agenda. Any questions on that?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
3.3, old business. Okay, 3.3.1, facilities.
Okay, just before I get into the facilities, just everybody that's watching live and then the board, we've been, I guess, increased to the number of folks that we can have at our meeting. So starting with the March board meeting, we'll be going back to a live version at Silver Hills Elementary. So unless something changes, be looking for that change for our, hopefully to wrap up the school years. We'll be going back and allowing live participation, and then the group will just move from here to there. So facilities, just some updates on a few things. So we had very minimal damage due to the January windstorm. I think everybody probably had a chance to get out and see what it looks like from around the valley. We did have the dugout roof at Silver Hills Elementary that was blown off. That's the second time. And even though we anchored it to more of the structure, it just ripped that structure away as well. So Tony's currently working with Zanetti's to try to get the forklift over to get it flipped back up, and then to determine how we're going to secure it next time. We'll just keep adding more straps to keep that roof on. We did also have one line knocked down over to the baseball field concession stand. Got a quick call into Avista, and I believe it was just a phone line, and they had it up really before we were even reporting that it was down. So outside of those two things, that was about it. So we were pretty fortunate considering how other places looked. Power's been installed at the two schools for the automatic door opening devices, so hopefully we'll be scheduling the installation of those pieces soon. And the communication system is installed and up and running at Silver Hills. So been a while, but so all of that seems to be functioning well. I get good reports of the clarity, and we're still kind of talking and asking questions about its capabilities in terms of, you know, maybe using it in conjunction with a desktop computer, because it does have the new speakers in the ceiling. So hopefully that will continue to change and for the better, and we'll continue to add parts and components to that to improve its function. So facilities wise, that's what we have for the month.
With those dugouts, we might want to start looking at when it starts becoming a safety issue, and structural damage. I mean, if we can put it back on and it's structurally sound, fine, but if it starts being not, sound, then maybe it's
Sure.
time to look at what it's going to take to not just patch it, but replace it. Because the last thing we want to do is a safety issue.
Right. And what they did last time is they just used a hurricane strap to a beam, and it ripped the beam off this time. It actually split the beam down the middle, so half is attached. So Tony was going to look at maybe some L brackets and actually concrete bolt them into the bricks and then also attach. But I'll let him know. Just make sure we're.
And I know there's been talk on the baseball end of replacing those dugouts anyway. Mm-hmm. So you might want to start leaning towards that a little bit.
Okay.
Hi, any questions on the facilities? Principals, you got anything on the facilities want to ask about? 3.3.2, our wish list. I see we got some things crossed out.
So just to kind of go down my list, I would like to make a recommendation that we put the following projects out to bid, just so we can get an idea of who's available, if anybody, and spread the word so we can look at completing some of those things. My list there that you have, the green highlighted things, would be the items that I'd like to have us look at for further discussion moving down the road. So the kitchen upgrades, and that would include an oven and range at the high school, a 3-bay sink, dishwasher and range at the elementary school, the carpet replacement at Silver Hills, to include the 2 kindergarten classrooms and commons, the entryway in the main part of the lobby there. The domestic water line going to the football field, we're still dealing with the leaks there. Even though we've repaired multiple holes and pieces, it's still leaking water. We're not running any faucets, but our meter's still turning, so I'd like to add that. The last item there would be the asphalt repair, replacement seal, and the additional dealings with the asphalt around the side at the district office in Silverton.
And remodel the restrooms. So is that Silver Hills?
I'm going to talk about that one separately.
Okay.
So the 4, so item 2, item 3, item 4, and item 12. And again, just to get the formal numbers that we can look at, and then we can have the conversation at a future board meeting to look at what bids we get.
I don't think we need a motion, just kind of a nod by everybody. Let's go ahead and start pursuing the bids on those and see what we come up with. Okay.
The bathroom remodel, Tony's making some contacts, just trying to find somebody that can come in to give us a ballpark for the Silver Hills restroom. So what we're dealing with there is the inch by inch tile. The grout, it's been there since the school was built. Our boys primarily have issues with aim, and it's getting difficult to seal and clean and reseal. So we were looking at some other options, maybe doing more like the 12-inch square type deals and getting away from the grout and the small tiles. But just the expanse of the project could be just the floor, or it could be removing the dividers. The toilets are sitting on the floor. The urinals are built into the floor, so it actually slopes down in. So anyway, so that's what he's looking at, that, and that could be something down the road once we get an idea. Might be something that we talk about as possibly going out for an official bid. We're just trying to find somebody that can come look and say what the scope of the project's going to look like. And tile laying is kind of a unique thing, and people that do that stuff are swamped with work elsewhere, so we're not having a lot of luck yet. But we're working on it. The other thing you'll notice that, you may not have noticed because it's gone, I took the routine roof maintenance of the 2 schools off the wish list because it's not technically something it's not a one-time purchase, it's a yearly maintenance, facilities maintenance, so I didn't feel that it fit very well for the wish list. When we go to plan that, because of the expense, it will be an item that we would have on the action items as a reoccurring cost, but it'll show up as a separate thing. So if you're looking at it, you may have noticed that that's different. So it will show up again. I don't have anything yet from our contractor that does the roof maintenance, but it will. We're going to try to stick to that routine of a yearly deal, so it's not a huge one-time cost. We can kind of space it out over a 10 to 12 year process.
Any questions on the wish list? Okay, let's move on. 3.3.3, policy revision, second readings.
In your packet, you'll see again that major updates. So you have 8 policies and procedures there. So what you're looking at would be the recommendation from our policy committee on the drafts as we put together. So we would recommend that the board approve those policies and the procedural numbered items as well.
For second and final? Mm-hmm.
Any questions, any discussion? Can we get a motion then?
Will you list them all out so I don't have to say, okay. I make a motion that we accept the policies for the second and final reading.
I second that.
Any discussion on them? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I just say again how great this policy committee is?
Oh,
Thanks, Molly.
Mr. Lund, are you getting anything on your phone?
I'm speechless.
Who would be listening that we could?
Yep, it's live.
It's okay. Oh, there we go. My little spy just let me know that she couldn't hear anything.
Oh, we're good though.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
sorry about that.
Tell your little spy that it's her end.
And I'm
It's
happy to say.
3.4, new business. Okay, we got 3.4.1, spring coaching recommendations for Mr. Bailey.
These are all the same as last year, right?
We've added Mr. Miller as an assistant volunteer because
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Reynolds left.
That's right. I make a motion that we approve the spring coaching list.
I'll second it.
We're, in discussion, the assistant track coaches, they were here last year.
Yep.
Okay,
You're talking the volunteer ones?
yes.
Well, yes, Jeff was not, he was here the year before,
Oh,
but,
this-
skipped a year, but.
But he was there the year before. Nobody has any questions about it. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
okay.
3.4.2, fourth grade teacher retirement.
Oh, this makes me so sad.
So you'll see in your packet, we have a intent to retire letter from Mrs. Ackard. She's been with the district for 30 years, 14 years as an hourly employee, as a PE aide, a cheer coach, a substitute, a librarian, and then 16 years as a fourth grade teacher. And she's decided that she's going to try and enjoy retirement. So be my recommendation that we accept her retirement and then give her a good farewell at some point at the end of the year. Hopefully we can have a gathering like we used to.
I'll make a motion that we accept the retirement letter of Mrs. Ackard. And do you want to post the position?
Yes, please.
And post the position?
Second that.
Any discussion? I want you to know I take full credit
Of course you do.
for Mrs. Acker because she was my aide in PE, and I talked her into going back to school and getting her teaching degree and become a teacher. So
Well, you done good.
you guys can thank me, and we'll miss her a bunch. Okay, all in favor of accepting Mrs. Acker's retirement? Not that we have a choice.
I asked me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on. 3.4.3, approval of a 2-day emergency school closure.
No, Idaho code requires that if we close school for an emergency, that the board approves such a closure. Once approved by the district, then a report is sent in along with the minutes showing that the board did take action on that. So on January 14th and 15th, due to the windstorm power outage and inconsistency with power, we did have 2 days of an emergency closure. So my recommendation would be that we just approve those 2 days.
Any questions about it?
I make a motion that we approve the 2-day emergency school closure.
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
3.4.4, approval, I just did that, 3.4.4, field trip approval.
So not something that we've done for all of our field trips. I asked our principals that if we do have something with the current state of affair with COVID, that if we have an outside the district type of, or outside the school building type of a field trip, that we at least talk about it so that you guys are aware what we're doing, just to be sure that we're following some guidelines in the places we're going to. We're also following some guidelines. So there was a couple things there on our list for this month coming up. One is a reward day to Silver Mountain. And we can talk about all of them or talk about one at a time and go through. It doesn't really matter. So
I think all at once is fine, don't you?
Yeah.
any questions on Silver Mountain? We've done it before. They have a pretty good protocol lined up, and I'm Mr. Lund and I have talked about it, and I would recommend that we approve that. Also, we have a group that's wanting to go up to Lookout Pass and do an environmental science trip to look at snowpack and talk about that part of the water cycle and some avalanche things. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the presentation, but that'll give you a pretty good idea. Again, it's outside. It's a very minimal group. It's the same group of students that are going to be together, so we're not interblending and doing those things with the cohort. So again, after speaking with Mr. Lund, I'm more than comfortable saying that I think it's something that we could do. So our recommendation would be that the board approve those 2 field trips, and we'll get those folks out and about.
I make a motion that we approve the 2 field trips, one to Silver Mountain and the other to Lookout.
Second that.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
3.4.5, accept resignation letter from AD position and post position. I have a letter here from for Mr. Bailey to, anybody have any questions on this?
Is his intent to stay with the district or move on, or?
Yes, he is planning on staying with the district.
So the resignation would cover his athletic director responsibilities, but not his classroom
Okay.
teaching
And will he continue
responsibilities.
to do it until we find somebody else to do it?
Well, he's got to do it to the end of this year.
Okay.
I mean, he's under contract, he's got a contract to do it this year. I've spoken to Mr. Lund about it quite a bit. Mr. Lund's been coming up with multiple ideas and running them past me. So he's been keeping me abreast of ideas that he's had. And Mr. Lund, you got anything to add to that? I know you're still,
Yeah, it's gonna come down to who we have apply and how does it best fit our school and best fit our community, and we make all the pieces fit. Creating a schedule at our level was as we talked about, a difficult task, but I think we're up to it. Just go through the process and see who we get and who the team wants to hire. And
so the situation we're in is that the athletic director is a half-a-day teacher, then a half-a-day. Is he still considered administrative?
I consider him an administrator.
Right. So he's a half-a-day administrator, half-a-day teacher. If he backs the administrative half out, there's a lot of options we can go. Half of them aren't too good for Mr. Bailey and the other half. The problem is finding, do we have a teacher on staff that will replace him, but then you got to replace that person's teaching position. Or can we jockey people around, and what can Mr. Bailey teach? Then you have seniority issues, so it's actually, there are a few things that can happen that'll make this really easy. And there's some things that are gonna make it really hard, and we just don't know what those are yet.
You're just gonna
And
come
how
back out of retirement and make it easy?
Just one.
Well, you'd have to pay me, and I would have to leave the board. But there's no question that's an option. I don't think we're going to talk Dick Camp into coming back.
One thing for me, my goal is to find an athletic director that can fill the spot. But also another piece of this goal is I want to keep Bruce Bailey in our school, because I think he's good for kids and he's good for our community. And so I think that's two of my priorities. Obviously, find somebody that's really good and is up to the task, but also keep Mr. Bailey here because he's an amazing teacher.
And it's nice that we have this letter now, because it does give us an extended amount of time, because this is kind of unique. It's not like a when a teacher retires, we'll be able to fill a full-time, this is with the pieces and parts of this, it's going to take some creative planning. So I thank Mr. Bailey for getting us that early, and with your approval and then the posting, we can at least start looking at what our options are, and that's what it's going to take, is who we have and how we can kind of mold it all around us.
And I can tell you, we've been personally blessed for a lot of years having great athletic directors.
Yeah.
Just had to get one more.
That's
in there.
just been my experience. So, and yeah, losing Mr. Bailey is gonna be, because I'll tell you right now, he did a great job. I mean, absolutely fantastic job. And so replacing him's gonna be, you know, we want somebody of that level back.
Yeah.
Just one quick thing on that too, is that whoever does get the job, we gotta remember that Mr. Bailey's still gonna be in the building. If we can swing that, where he can assist that person to transition into to that role and meet the contacts that he has, and it'll be a nice transition.
Yeah, and he'll step up and help us where we, no matter what. Just because that's the way he is. Okay, I need a motion to accept him.
Make a motion to accept Bruce Bailey's resignation from the athletic director position
At the end of the year.
at the end of the year.
This position.
And advertise.
I'll sadly second it.
Yeah, what Molly said.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
3.4.6,
Your other favorite thing.
approval of school year calendar. We have our packet,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Why is it that we do the early release in the middle of the week? As a mom, I'm really liking the Friday thing. But we're going back to the Thursday thing, and I'm just wondering,
Why Thursday instead of Friday?
yeah,
Friday is notorious for a horrible time to do any type of deep collaborative thinking.
okay.
Monday is equally as bad. The other issue is Friday, at least at the elementary, tends to be the assessment day to kind of wrap up the week. And even with a full day, they're pretty stacked full. So to chop that day off. The other issue would be that we do miss a number of Fridays. So,
Okay. I was just curious.
yep. Now, would you guys want to add anything else?
Well, but every Thursday is a 2:00.
Oh.
It's 3:00. So, which, I mean, we've been doing it that way for a while, but now that we're doing the Friday at noon thing, I'm kind of like,
So,
this up last month, but there's no school board meeting for June or August.
Perfect.
It's our break, it's our collaboration month.
no, they'll be there. And
Well, we want to approve this, a motion to approve this tonight. But when we make the motion, we can,
Adding,
any meeting, we can change this again, right? It's not locked in stone?
correct.
Okay. Any more questions?
I don't know if you have more. Basically, what you're looking at is very similar to what we've had in years past, with the number of days, breaks, collaboration days back on those Fridays. We have the 5 half days throughout the year. Our start date and end date are pretty similar, but I do want to point out we did make some tweaks that you'll find in March and April. We met with our administrative team and they went back and met with the teachers at the schools. So, we did move spring break from the last week of March to that first full week of April. And the rationale behind that is trying to try some different stuff with parent-teacher conferences and quarter end at the junior, senior high to hopefully help parents understand where their students are before quarter end so that we could have conferences, let them know where they're at, and then they would still have a little bit of time then to address issues with their grades before the quarter end. So those changes were 100% geared towards trying to improve student learning and just trying to get them through a quarter so that we don't have failing grades in the quarter. So it was all based on student decisions. So other than that, everything will look very similar to probably the last 5 or 6 years of calendars that we've had.
This one's easy to read. I like how the things are by each month instead of the legend down at the bottom and you're trying to reference
Connie
it.
put quite a bit of time. We had like 11 different versions floating around. So the fact that you guys got one in your
Sometimes it was
packet.
like, I had to make notes to understand what I was doing each month.
We really took a look at for the junior, senior high is our quarters. I don't know if you can see on the side there, it tells you how many days are in the quarter.
Oh.
And we recognize that some of our calendars, we've had quarters that had like 56 days in it. And we have classes that are on a quarterly basis, and we also have classes that are on a semester basis. So some kids were spending 110 days in health, the other kids were getting 80 days in PE, and then you could swap. And the curriculum was not aligning. So we really did a good job trying to make them as equal as possible.
Any more questions? Any motion?
I make a motion, we approve the calendar for the 2021-2022 year.
I'll second that.
Any more questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
3.4.7, hire elementary principal. I want you to know I was receiving several texts on this. Well, why are we getting rid of our principal? Why is she leaving? But that is not what this is. Mr. Howard will explain to you what this is all about.
So every year, every employee of the district, we have to go through a process of approving their continual hire. So we'll do it with our certificated staff, our classified staff, myself, and our building principal. So this is just that continued process. I also had a number of communications of every type wondering what was going on. So hopefully after sharing that this is procedural that we do every year, don't panic, but we do need to go through that process. So it's kind of unique and this is the way this is set up, however, so I want to share just some of that information in that currently Mr. Lund is working on wrapping up the first year of a 2-year contract. So last year, he and I were hired on, or we were offered, I guess, a 2-year principal contract. And that was something new that I hadn't been part of, and Mr. Lund hadn't been part of either. So he's just finishing up that first year. Mrs. Miller then was hired on a 1-year contract. So we got a couple different things going on there. So moving forward, and I talked with Mr. Rounds today just to kind of see how this process would go. So I think we need to have a kind of a conversation on some things. Principals can be offered a 1-year or a multi-year contract. Generally speaking, and what I found in my research talking with other superintendents in Idaho is that the multi-year contracts are 2-year. I didn't find anybody in Region 1 or 2 that did anything other than a 1 or a 2-year. Couple different options on a multi-year. 1 year is pretty self-explanatory. It's just renewed every year. Some of the districts that do offer 2-year contracts, there's a couple options there. Some of the districts do a 2-year rolling contract. So every year there's literally 2 years. So for example, Mr. Lund at the end of this year would have another year tacked on to the end, and then he would always have 2 years looking forward. Some of the districts do a 2-year, and they finish out the 2 years, and then they do another 2-year after that. So if that were the case, then this would be Mr. Lund's first year, next year would be his second, and then the following contract would then be another 2 years. So there's some options there. Couple things I would say to that would be that a 2-year contract could be viewed as a statement of insurance from the district to a principal that they're performing favorably for the district. It gives them a little bit of calm in that they would know that if there were issues, then potentially there could be a couple years to work out some bugs and work on some professional growth. That's also could be looked at as positive for the district because it would, if we were going to offer our principals a 2-year contract, then we would be asking them to commit 2 years to the district. So that would be some things to think about. A cautionary statement that I would make about a multi-year contract, however, would be that if you offer multiple years to a person and you decide in the middle of that multi-year that you're going to release them because you've obligated and they've or you've offered and they have approved of a multi-year, you'll find often when that happens with superintendents, the districts end up having to buy the administrator out of their contract. So some things to consider as we move forward. So my recommendation is that we hire both of our principals. I think considering all of the things that we have to deal with on a regular basis and then include on top of it all of the COVID related things, it's a great team to work with. I think they're going to do fantastic things for the district, and I look forward to what future years bring. So I'd entertain questions. I can give you my recommendation of how we might move forward or however wish.
Are we just doing Silver Hills tonight?
Well,
Because it's the only
we're
one,
discussing, yeah.
the only one on the agenda.
So if you look further down where we have the
Oh, I see.
the hiring of the high school principal, he's already hired. Chris is already hired for 2 years. It's just how we proceed forward. So it's not that we have to have a motion necessarily for that because he's already got the 2 years. It's just what are we going to do as we move forward?
So wouldn't it be cleaner if we did Brooke for 1 year and then next year when everybody's up, everybody's
Both, two.
two?
That could be an option.
Right.
So then we're on like the same kind of cycle?
Right, that way they're, yeah, we're not.
Well, I see where you're going with that. And I was thinking the same thing, but how I was thinking about going to get it, and I really don't care how we do it, is that we offer them both a 2-year contract tonight and a rolling contract. So next year would be another 2-year thing. Since I asked Mr. Howard, are we having any issues? And the answer was no. And I've never heard of one. And then they're both on the same right now, not next year. It's a 2-year contract rolling right now. Now, I'm not so sure they want that, but I would think they would. And I also like that because it kind of gives them the confidence that we're behind them, that we're very supportive of our principals.
So explain to me again how that would work.
We would,
Because then you don't do it only
you
being,
would do it every
not being
year.
that there's problems, just asking questions.
Right, you would do it every year.
Okay.
You would renew the 2-year contract. So they always had 2 years guaranteed. And they're both on the same right now. They would then be on the same thing. And we would, even though we would deal with it every year, it'd be a 2-year contract. Now, they wouldn't be able to bank those years. It would be, you would drop off one of those years and you get 2 more and you get 2 more and then you get 2 more every year. But it's never more than a 2-year thing. And it's just a procedural thing. The drawback would be if they wanted to leave, we can hold them to their contract. Or we could let them out of their contract and it was a 2-year thing. And I know, like Bob, if you're a teacher and you signed your contract and we were down to the wire where we had to start school and all of a sudden you wanted out of your contract, he wasn't going to let you out of your contract because it was too late. So kind of if they were to get offered a job, let's say a week before school started somewhere else, that would put us in a spot. But if we had a 2-year rolling contract, we'd be able, if we wanted to, we could say, hey, we can't afford to lose you right now. No. So it kind of helps us, kind of helps them plan. But I don't care how we do it. To me, it doesn't matter. I just want to leave here tonight, let our principals know that they're not going to have to worry about their contracts, and we want to get them on the same year.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your opinion? The only reason I ask, or I'm hesitant of that one, is just the statement that you made, is if you're in that, then it's kind of, I don't know, I want to keep them for a long time, forever, because they're young and they're great for the district, but you also have to do what's, I don't know, the easiest and the best for the district too, by still letting them know.
Well, there's ways, regardless of how it were to go. I mean, you still need to go through a certain set of protocols to allow for some improvement. So if things were not positive, then there's still some processes we still have to go through anyway. So I think in this sense, the 2-year does give some reassurance on both sides, knowing that there's still some procedural things we'd have to go through one way or another.
I like the 2. I was just asking your opinion between the 2 and the rolling 2, because I like the 2, but I'm the only one who thinks that.
And I guess if you look at a rolling 2, then you have a little bit of assurance as a principal that, okay, if things start going south, because who knows, I may not be here forever, and if somebody else comes here and there's friction, then it does give them some latitude of how they might move forward, one way or another. If you get down to letting the 2 years expire, then I guess you are kind of in the boat of, well, that's last year, that second year, I don't have another year guaranteed, and maybe a little angst. So I think the most comfortable for both parties would be the rolling 2. And that doesn't mean that we have to continue that either. This is the hiring of principals is still something we'll do every year, and how we move forward can always change. If we look at it and say, things aren't going as smooth, we'd like to address some things. So until those things are addressed, we're only going to offer a 1-year contract. We can go back and do that at any time. This does not set us up for a 2-year rolling forever. So we could look at that as well to say, okay, we tried these things, but now we're at the end of this 2 years. We're not going to, at this point, we're not going to continue that. We're going to change. So we could do that too. It does give us some flexibility.
Just from my 2 cents, it's, if I want to, let's say during this meeting and I'm on my rolling 2, and you guys said we're not going to extend that rolling 2-year contract, then that is a sign to me I've got to start figuring some things out, improving, or I might need to be looking for another job. If I don't have the support of the school board at that point. I'm not saying that now, but I'm saying that's how I would see that rolling 2. Is that gives me an opportunity to see where you guys are at. Well, they're not going to do a rolling 2, then I've got to get some things figured out. I've got to start working with Mr. Howard, improving, or
Well, I would like to see it either a 2-year or a rolling 2, but I want them both to have 2-year.
I agree.
I agree with the 2-year.
I think everybody agrees with that. So what we need to decide tonight is where do we want to go with it? Do we want to do with the rolling 2 or to experiment with that, or do we want to
I mean, I
go with just a 2 tonight and say they're both on a 2-year contract starting right now? So am I right?
So that would just extend.
This is another year.
one more, give them another year.
But I do have one Debbie Downer to this. I don't think we only have as an action item
For Brooke.
for Brooke.
For Brooke,
We
right.
don't have as an action item for Chris, so we would have to do that next month.
Or,
5.6, hiring of high school.
But it's on
but that's.
It's not an action item.
Information items.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the action item that we need to take care of is a motion to hire the elementary principal for next year. Then
Minimum.
right. As far as how we continue to go about, then that can be part of the conversation for Mrs. Miller. Mr. Lund's already on a 2-year contract.
So let's go ahead and just have Ms. Miller for a year
year.
contract this month.
Okay.
And then
And then next month, then we'll address the, both of them with the rolling 2 or a 2-year contract.
yeah, just put it as an action item. So then we
And as an action
You can
item.
do that.
action
Yep.
on both.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion that we hire Brooke Miller as our elementary principal for another year.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and next month we will address both of them.
Okay.
with an
Plus,
action
that can
item.
give us kind of some more time to think about it and talk about it,
Correct.
come up with some questions.
Yep. Okay. 4.0 information items. 4.1, Mrs. Karst isn't here. Does she have anything in the bag? Yeah, she does. 4.2, fourth grade teacher retirement. Where am I at? I'm wrong.
All over.
Hope you're on.
I'm up in the 4.2, Silver Hills Elementary School. Mrs. Miller, you're up.
All right. There were a couple things I didn't add to the board report that I thought of after the fact. We do have a student teacher right now that's in first grade for 8 weeks, and then she'll be in our special ed department for 8 weeks. And she's been a para at our school for, I don't know, several years, right? So it's always nice to keep our staff going forward and helping them continue their education. Everything's kind of been the same. Bingo night for PTO, there were some people who weren't able to get on the January 29th date, so we do have that as a go again this Friday. So some stuff will be sent home to help people get on to try one more time for the virtual bingo. And Mr. Schauber from the high school came down to Silver Hills and spent 2 days observing elementary schools and getting into kindergarten and doing the Macarena a little bit and watching some of those kids at recess. So a little change of pace from high school and elementary school, but he did a great job and we liked having him there. Are there any questions on this?
I had a question
Yeah.
for the safety meeting agenda. Middle of the page, it says buy more desks.
Yeah, Tony brought that up to buy some more desks because we're pretty limited on individual desks. There are some tables though.
What happened to the giant pile of desks that were taking up room in the concession stand? So we were going to move them to a different place. Where did those go?
Back into the classroom. We had a few people at back there a couple years ago that thought it would be a good idea to go to round tables and longer pods, and those didn't work as well. So now we've cycled those out and the desks have moved back in. And we also added that additional first grade classroom. So we did have a few desks and chairs go in there.
Where did we put those kids?
We put them in what was the title math room.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yep.
So we are actually running out of desks.
I think we're running out of good selections of desks. We may have 10 or 15 desks, but they may be bigger and it's hard to put them under. So I think what we're looking for is maybe finding an array of things.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just curious.
You'll probably still get on TVs with VCRs though.
All those still.
We found lots of those on our facilities tour.
We do use one though. Inside recess, we can put that right in front of the pit and they can watch the movie. We need that one.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, 4.3, Mr. Len?
Okay, just a couple of things. We now have 2 water filling stations in our school upstairs and downstairs here, so the kids now can get their water bottles filled quite quickly, which is awesome and amazing since we don't have our drinking fountains turned on. So Tony helped us with that, and Innovia, is it Innovia? They were the ones in the Social Medical Center bought this one down here, and then the Callahan Zeller Foundation purchased the one upstairs. So it was a nice addition to the school. Athletic events, just as the ink dried, as we met on the previous board meeting, everything changed. Now we have 40% capacity or 4 people per player in the game, which added just another beast for Mr. Bailey and myself, and Mr. Speck, who's been helping out a ton. And we've got that squared away, getting people in and out of the building. We haven't met our 40% capacity yet, which is 222 fans in our gym. The most we had in there, I think, was 115, and that was the Kellogg Wallace game. The current, or not, this isn't a current F's chart. Or wait, real quick, back to Miss Russell there, her page. Miss Russell was out sick and having a family death. Just a huge shout out to Mrs. House and Marcia Howard down in the district office for helping during semester changes and new student enrollment. It was, without Marion here, it was kind of cutting off both your arms during that time. Not having her here. The F's chart here, this is quarter two, the final 3 weeks of the quarter. So you can see we did have an uptick in a few grades where we had multiple F's, or a little bit higher than a week prior. But in general, the last week of school, you saw things drastically go down for failing grades. So that was huge. The back page of that, this is our semester one failure list. So I won't remember confidentiality. We can't talk about names. Some concerns that we had as a staff were 4th, 7th, 8th graders that did not meet are not going to meet the 80% threshold to move on to the next grade level. That's per state code. But in talking with Mr. Howard and our staff, we're going to really encourage these 7th and 8th graders to improve second semester and see if we can come to a consensus that they may be able to move on depending on their skill level at the end of the year. One big thing is you can take a look at 10th grade. How many students failed English 10 first semester? That was going to be a real eyesore for us next year with our schedule. So we did some adjusting for our current schedule for next semester. And Mrs. Brackenbush is teaching another class for her. She was taking an English 10 first semester for these kids that failed. So they're going to do credit recovery in that class. So they won't have to take that first semester their 11th grade year. So we were able to adjust that. We're helping 10 kids with that. So they won't have to retake it next year. And then you see an 11th grade and a 12th grade there, incompletes for U.S. History 2. 4 out of those 5 did pass History 2. They were able to get the current grades up for that, get their assignments turned in. Thankful for Mr. Schauber's efforts there to get them to pass. And then 12th grade, that top student, we believe, may be unenrolled. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, for both of you, are we getting back to normal?
It's
I mean, as far as the day-to-day operations of the building?
been awesome.
All back.
The worst part of my day is junior high lunch.
Yeah, we're back to normal then. The other question I have, are they gonna do state testing this year?
We think.
Yep. There's been no information sent that they're not. And that will be, the English Language Learners Assessment has already started. We'll be starting ISAT here in March, and the IRI will be starting in May. So it's coming.
It'll be interesting to see how the numbers jar with a year of
COVID.
COVID, to see how fast we recovered and how much we lost, if we lost anything, which I'm pretty sure we probably did.
Well, one thing to Mrs. House put together, and I don't know if he shared this with you guys, but 3 years worth of concessions and gate duty, or gate money for our school for athletics, and how consistent the last 2 years have been on how much money we've made. And then this year, we're down about $12,000 when it comes to that. Without having people paying for gate or having any concession stand.
One thing I talked to Mr. Bailey, Mr. Howard about was the next, if we get another round of COVID money come in, of possibly throwing some money back into the athletic department because of the funding because they're still having games, we're still paying officials.
Right.
And we weren't charged, and at the gate, no concessions. The athletic department lost a lot of money. Thank God Bruce had a nest egg there that we were able to not go in the hole, that we lost that nest egg. So there might be, one of the things we might want to consider is, or if there's other groups that lost money because they weren't able to do, but they were still spending money like athletics was. I mean, if they didn't spend money and they lost money, it's kind of hard to be as sympathetic, but athletics really got nailed. Plus, we got a good chance to go in state. I mean, and we went in volleyball, and a good chance we got a chance to go in basketball, and then in the spring, we got golf and track where somebody always goes. So that expense is going to be there for us. Anything else for high school? 5.0 communication and information. 5.1 attendance.
So if you look at that submittal for the board packet, you'll see we had an overall net zero change. We had a couple additions, a couple left. Looking at this particular date and time, we are still down. The good news in that is that we're not talking about being down 30 plus students. We're now in the 20s, so that's good for us in our FTE calculations. When we keep track of those, we're actually seeing a little bit of an increase because we're slowly getting back some of our enrollment. So that was good. I think some of it has to do with the fact that we did come back 5 days a week, and we do have a couple families that moved in. So enrollment-wise, it's improving. We're still not where we were last year, but it looks better now than it did back in September and October.
Any questions? 5.2 Wallace School District goals, midterm reflections.
Well, I'll try to keep it semi-quick. I did give you just the notes that I'd be going through. I did highlight a couple things, so please remember we had 6 total goals that were discussed at the start of the year. Those would be there where it says goal. So for example, the 2021 district budget, so that 100% of accounts allocate all funds to be outlined in that budget. So just a couple points I'd stress there. Just kind of looking back at the first half of the year, the 5% holdback has not been released, and it's hasn't been reestablished. And it's still a mixed message from Boise. Some are saying that there's conversations that it will. Some are saying that there's no chance that it will. So the current legislative session will let us know at some point. IT funds were cut as part of that 5% holdback, but the good thing there was we did get those Idaho rebound funds and care funds to help address those things. So kind of a net zero loss. So we lost some money in one place, but they did fill it with some other things there. So we do have remaining funds to cover extra costs for transportation, food, and staffing regarding COVID. Mr. Rounds is right in that looking at the potential for other releases of funds, we did get another allotment of, I guess, a round 2 of CARES money with a little bit longer spending period. It pushes us out to 2023, so we will be able to look at how we can address some of our gaps with learning loss and those types of things, and maybe continue to use those funds even beyond this school year and even the summer. So we'll see kind of what that brings. It also, talking about some losses due to athletics because of COVID. So all of those things can potentially be addressed. So I think we're budget-wise, things are looking good considering the holdback. There are still some legislative things that hopefully will be done by the end of February. There's potentially lots of questions, and we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that just because of some of the bills. We just don't know what impact that will have. But so far, the stuff we do know, I feel pretty good with the budget. Goal 2, looking at that professional development and that continued focus on professional learning communities and high reliability schools. Last week we had a staff from both schools. It was a smaller group of just 3 instead of the larger group that we usually send down to Arizona. That wasn't an option for a live training. They did participate in a virtual one, and I sat in, Mr. Lund and I sat in on a couple of the different keynotes to listen to their speakers, and as usual, it was a great message. After the conference sections were over, I sat in and had some conversations with those folks, and as always, it was a good, rich conversation. So the professional learning community information was great. We do have the Wallace School District Leadership Group is going to be looking at a couple days in February and a couple days in March to look at some high reliability school information, specifically pinpointed towards building and district leadership. So we'll be participating in that coming up February and March. So far it's been difficult to try to find professional development just because everybody has canceled any live things, and trying to then do things virtually is a little bit more difficult. So it's been a challenge, but we're still finding some things, still continuing to do that collaboration within the school. So I think we're moving in a good direction, and hopefully as things improve, we'll be able to go back to maybe participating live instead of everything being virtual. Communication wise, every day, I would say that there's different formats of communication, whether it be phone, email, text, school messenger. I even get some things through snail mail in an envelope still, which I don't get very often. So I would say that everything that has come across my desk in any of those forms has been dealt with in that 1.5 working day guideline, and I just continually check whether it's the inbox or whether it's the wooden one on my desk or the one on my computer. So still communicating daily is a good portion of the day. So feel real good about that so far. Review, update, and maintain of the school board policies at goal number 4. So 100% of the school boards will be reviewed and are updated annually. So by October 1st, I made my way through the procedures and protocols for adherence. I did find 10 policies where I wanted to spend some time and look at just how we were addressing those within the district. You have a list there, and I'm working with those with the gals in the district office, just trying to figure out, are we following them word for word on what we're doing. So I'll continue to look at those. We do have our policy committee, which you dealt with some of those things today, and that's been a learning experience, and I think a good experience as well. We've been able to look through a large pile of our new policies. So I think both of those will continue to do, and that goal will be something that I continue to work on with the building principals throughout the school year. That goal 5, development and implementation of the Wallace School District Wellness Program. So this is ongoing, and we've been working on that from the start of the school year. We've had multiple large group meetings and multiple small subcommittee meetings, and one of the main things we had to do was to review our policies and practice from the district. We did that, and then we broke down into 3 subgroups to find a focus for the remainder of the 2021 school year, and those committees came up with focuses in the areas of rewards and recognition for staff and students, looking at adult wellness data so that we could use that data to then come up with an adult wellness program. So that would be something brand new that the district would be taking on. And then wellness education at both buildings and then with the staff. So those committees are continuing to work on those things, and we'll continue to do that through the school year and into next year. So we've complied with what the state wants us to do with the wellness committee and on our policy, and now we're going to continue to find some things that the district might need and continue to do those. Last but not least, goal 6 is looking at the student growth in mathematics, where we're looking at how our special ed population is doing in relation to how our gen ed population is doing, and trying to close that gap, that growth gap. I did look at some some kind of interim, I guess, results. Mrs. Miller and I looked through iReady numbers, and what we have found that overall, our students at grade level has grown by 20%. Our students that were below grade level has been reduced by 12%. Our K-6 Gen Ed growth, it was about 67%, where our K-6 SPED growth on their iReady assessments, they grew by 89%. So hopefully that will translate into, because they're growing at a greater rate, that gap will start to close, and we'll go from there. And the building principals will continue to look at our SPED students' progress through student progress reports or assessments that come up. And so I would say goal 6 is probably one of the more difficult ones to track as we go. But so far, the numbers that we're seeing look great. I shared with our admin team today, we received some information on the K3 IRI, which is not math related, but it's a reading indicator, and we're seeing some great numbers there. We have our K3 SPED students are growing at a faster rate than the state average, and they're also closing the gap between our Gen Ed kids and the SPED population. So it's nice to see that they're doing it there as well. So I think all of that information will lead us into a good spot once we get all of our data back from spring assessments. So.
Any questions on goals? 5.3 Wellness Committee update.
And I kind of gave you that part. I just wanted to read through here really quick and make sure that I didn't miss anything. I think everything I had was kind of part of that goal, so I don't really have anything else to add specifically there, Mr. Round, so we can...
Step challenge.
Yeah.
Everything's off.
Oh, that's true, the step challenge, yeah, so we're getting started. How could, I'm on that committee.
Too bad. We're way better than you. Done our
Yeah, well, ours was more lofty. So the handout that you see is the start of our step challenge we're going to do in March. So just a challenge to the students to track their fitness, and we're going to try to get the adults involved. Hopefully I'll get my Fitbit on my own wrist, and maybe I can look at some of that stuff as well. But we're just going to use some of our Idaho Rebound funds for mental health and some of those things, and we'll look at getting some pedometers so the kids can track their steps throughout the day. We'll track them for a week or a month depending upon their age level, and we'll just hopefully make them a little more cognizant on tracking their activity. So, and then the other two groups, well, are overachievers, and one group is completely done, and the other one is kind of in the middle where we're at. They're continuing to do some things, gathering data, surveys have went out, so we'll see what that data shows.
We're not done. It's ongoing.
No.
Ongoing.
Yeah, ours
Part
never
of yours
ends.
is in the newsletter.
Yes.
The healthy recipes every month.
You guys can say we are putting out a healthy snack once a month in the newsletters and through social media that Amber's in charge of getting those recipes. We've got a student updating our slideshows and our walkways with a healthy vegetable or fruit for the week, with facts and information about that fruit, and then social media posts of our lunch menu every day, and which we've seen a huge increase. I don't know if it's because everybody's back and it's free right now, but in students eating lunch at our school. So,
Good.
go ahead.
Riley was sick the other day, but she wouldn't leave the building until she finished her slideshow.
There we go. Yeah, it's been very
Good
helpful.
job.
So it's just been a nice addition, and it's just, I think, keeps people's eyes on certain things and focuses in on healthy eating. So, yeah.
5.4 vaccination update.
So our staff has been provided 3 different opportunities for their first vaccination. So they've had clinics through Panhandle Health. Our last one was February 3rd. Some of our staff have already participated in their second dose. So I would, I'm only making a guesstimation to say that we're probably going to be in the 50 to 60% range participating through that. Now they've got enough of our staff and that group 1B that they're moving down the list, and now they're allowing the 65 and olders in. So that's creating some struggles in that the clinics are filling up so quickly, and I've heard 12 to 13 minutes and all of the appointments are full. So any of our staff that are looking are going to struggle a little bit more. But from the feedback that I've received from staff, talking to them and talking with Mrs. Miller and Mr. Lund, is that our staff that needed it got in, and has really kind of been a breath of fresh air for them in terms of feeling, safer coming back to school. So for us, it's been a pretty good process. I think people who wanted the opportunity got it. We were able to work with them and within the buildings and give them the opportunity to go down, and being able to get their appointments was pretty smooth. So it's went well.
The online version of it's a lot faster, easier. Got my dad's appointment scheduled.
Yep.
The online easy.
Getting online, it's easy.
Yeah, they
Schedule.
opened it last Friday. They had like an hour of like call-in window, and then they opened online appointments.
For everybody? Or-
Yeah, it was like you just go to the website and click the button,
Okay,
and
so we're getting to the point where the main groups are, you've already gotten it, and now it's opening up to the public?
just for the people that are eligible within the groups.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. But there's not a lot of check on
Anything else? Okay, 5.5 extracurricular activities guideline update.
So Mr. Lunn alluded to that right after. We literally had a board meeting on a Monday, and I believe it might have even been Tuesday afternoon. We got a new update. We went from having our plan presented and approved, and then right back to, this 40% number. Again, I can't thank Mr. Bailey and Mr. Lund enough for being flexible. We were able to meet that week, rehash the plan again, sticking with the guidelines from the governor. And, we were a little concerned about games that we had coming up, knowing that that Kellogg Wallace game, the boys game, could potentially bring a bigger crowd. I came into the game, finally been able to come in and watch a few, and procedurally, the process looks great. The fans and the crowd have been positive. The kids are able to show, and we can have a student section. The cheerleaders are there, and I think overall it just is another step to some sense of what the games were like before. So the attitude-wise has been great, and we'll just continue to move forward. Winter sports are just about done, and then a lot of this with spring sports, because it's all outside, I'm sure will look completely different. So we're just about done, I think, with the bulk of this. But again, it's like I said, every day you think you got something hammered out, and then changes show up. So thanks.
Questions? The guidelines? 5.6, hire a high school principal, we've already discussed that. So unless somebody has any more questions about it, a motion for executive session.
Are we reading?
Yes,
Are we right?
I think so.
Okay.
Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of School District 393 recess from our regular meeting into executive session pursuant to section 74-206(1)(d) to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74, Idaho Code.
I'll second it.
Roll call,
Dave Rouse,
yes.
Anna Berger. Yes. Amber Valley,
Yes.
Molly McGee. Yes. Dan Hussey.
We are in executive session. You
I make a motion that we approve the 2 open enrollments with an attendance plan in place and continue to follow that attendance plan.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion,
We adjourn.
Second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.